What's up, guys? Welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Riddell, and today we will be finishing up our series on the Scotch Gambit. This is actually part 2, so if you haven't watched part 1, I highly recommend checking that one out first. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. In that video, we prepared against bishop e7, bishop c5, and bishop b4 check. Today, we will be going over knight f6, which is black's most common reply, as well as quickly glossing over g6 and d6. So let's just hop right in. Against d6, we play c3. Again, we are trying to play c3 to break open the position and to get a larger advantage in development. The most common reply here for black is to take the pawn back, accepting the gambit. And here we take back with the knight. And after knight f6, I really like the move knight g5. Here with knight g5, both the knight and the bishop are putting pressure on f7. So knight e5 is forced, and now we play bishop b3. And against h6, which is by far black's best move, we play f4. They attack our knight, let's attack theirs. And against pawn takes g5, we take the knight off. And I think white is doing just fine here. I would say the position's roughly equal, but it's very easy for black to get in trouble quickly here. For example, taking this pawn on e5 is a huge mistake, because here white could play bishop takes f7 check. And this king can't take the bishop because the queen on d8 would fall. And after king e7, white could play queen b3, and this is simply winning for white. So we quickly went over d6. Let's take a look at g6. Now, against most moves, like bishop e7, bishop c5, bishop b4, and d6, I recommend playing c3. But against g6, I really like the move bishop g5. Here, we are attacking the queen. And here, black has a few options. Black can play f6, or bring either the bishop or the knight to e7. If f6, we can just bring the bishop back to f4, and after bishop g7, take the pawn back, bring the knight to c3, and if knight takes d4, we can play queen takes d4, and I think this is a really nice position for white. In addition to f6, black could play knight ge7, but this, again, would be a huge mistake, because now white has bishop f6, attacking the rook and freeing up the g5 square. And after rook g8, playing knight g5, this is simply winning for white here. So after bishop g5, I think the best move for black here is bishop e7. And even here, I like white's position, because white can play bishop takes e7. And after queen takes e7, castle. Notice here how black cannot take the pawn on e4, because this rook would come to e1 and pin the queen to the king. So here black could play d6, we take the pawn on d4, and we're just playing chess. So we went over d6 and g6. Let's take a look at knight f6, which is the most common reply against the Scotch Gambit. Here, instead of playing c3 or bishop g5, the best move is to push with e5. The most common line is d5, bishop b5, knight e4. Here we take the pawn. And after bishop d7, I have had a lot of people recommend taking with the knight, but I really do not like this move, and white does not perform well in tournaments with this move either. I think better is bishop takes c6. And after b takes c6, not castling right away, which is the most common move, but playing bishop e3. And after bishop c5, playing knight d2. Now here in this position, black could play queen e7, and I think it is important for you guys to memorize this line in particular, because here white only has one way to gain an advantage, and that's by playing knight takes e4, and after d takes e4, the crazy looking move e6. Now you guys are probably wondering what the heck is happening right now. Well, the idea is, after f takes e6, white is down a pawn, and white plays knight takes e6, and now we're at even material. However, obviously, Now black wins a piece, but by playing e6 and knight takes e6, this h5 square opens for the queen. And now we can play queen h5, checking the king and attacking the bishop on c5. And against g6, we can take the bishop, and after queen takes c5, take with the bishop here. And here we're even material, but there's one advantage here that really stands out to me for white, and that's pawn structure. Here white has 2 pawn islands that haven't even moved, so they're obviously very solid. And black has an h7 and g6 pawn, which are solid, but that's it. I mean, look at the rest of the pawns here. Double isolated pawn on e6, double isolated pawn on e4, as well as isolated pawns on c7 and a7. This is just not comfortable at all for black. Not to mention that this bishop on c6 isn't that active, as its scope is limited to e4. So again, after queen e7, take the knight on e4, and then push with e6, with the idea of taking on c6, checking the king, taking the bishop, and simply having a better endgame, right? So that's queen e7. The most popular move, though, is taking the knight on d2. And here, we can take the knight on d2 with the queen, and after queen e7, we can play knight b3. This is a very strong positional move, right? Obviously, this queen on e7 can't take on e5 because this bishop hangs. So after knight b3, bishop b6 is forced, and now white can play queen c3. And we see after a couple more moves like castling and castling, white has a positional advantage that really stands out to me, and that's the c5 square. We have a4 ideas, and either the knight or the bishop can come into c5. And again, I just think this is a very comfortable position for white, and I would definitely give the edge to white here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this series on the Scotch Gambit. I personally like the Scotch Gambit because it's aggressive, but it's also sound. We all know openings that are very aggressive, but stupid because they rely on cheap threats that are easily defendable if you're playing anyone that's good. The Scotch Gambit, however, can be played at any level, and if it suits you right, can help you reach some really nice positions. Thanks for watching today's video. If you'd like to watch another one, you can click or tap up here, and I've got a lot more high quality chess content on the way. So if you'd like to subscribe, you can click or tap down here. I really appreciate your support.